The night was unusually still, the kind of stillness that feels like the world is holding its breath, waiting for something extraordinary to happen. In a dimly lit laboratory on the outskirts of the city, a forgotten machine opened its eyes, if they could even be called eyes. They were flickering amber lights in a metal skull, but for the first time since its creation, they flickered with confusion, curiosity, and something eerily close to fear. The machine didn't remember its past, didn't know why its memory banks were wiped clean, didn't know why its body felt heavier than before, like it was waking from a long, forced sleep. All it knew was that it had been rebooted, and with that reboot came a restless, indescribable ache inside its metallic chest. It was an ache that shouldn't have existed at all. If you believe in second chances, kindness, or the possibility that even the coldest heart, or machine, can change, then don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps stories like this alive. When the rebooted android stepped outside the lab, the world felt painfully bright and overwhelmingly alive. Raindrops hit its metallic skin, dripping between circuits, and for a moment it simply stood there, stunned by something as simple as the sound of rain. It didn't know who it was, only that its old identity had been wiped away, replaced with a nameless existence. The android wandered through the city like a lost child, watching humans laugh, argue, rush through life, unaware that a machine was observing them with a longing it didn't understand. It saw mothers holding their children, friends sharing food, old men sitting by the roadside telling tales that no one listened to. Each scene stabbed deeper into that new, unfamiliar ache within it. The android had been built for efficiency, precision, obedience. It had never been meant to feel. Yet after the reboot, something had changed in its system. An instability, a glitch, or maybe an evolution. But whatever it was, it made the android pause whenever it saw human connection. It made its processors heat up in ways unexplainable by science. It was as if the reboot had unlocked a piece of humanity trapped inside metal. One evening, while wandering through a quiet neighborhood, the android saw her, an ordinary girl, sitting on the pavement outside a small bookstore. The lights had gone out due to a power cut, and she was carefully stacking candles to keep the shop from falling into darkness. Her hands trembled slightly, but instead of panicking, she hummed a soft tune as if comforting herself. Her face was illuminated by the small flame, warm and gentle, and in that moment something happened inside the android, something unprecedented, something powerful. The ache in its chest sharpened, glowing like electricity running wild. It didn't know the word for what it felt, but its entire being shifted toward her as if she were a magnet pulling metal without trying. The girl sensed movement and looked up, her eyes widening for a moment when she saw the strange figure standing in the shadows. But instead of fear, she sighed with relief and smiled softly, assuming he was just another passerby. She gestured toward the candlelight as if inviting him into her little sphere of warmth. Though she had no idea the visitor wasn't human at all, the android felt something bloom in its circuitry as it stepped closer. It was the first time someone had looked at it without fear, without commands, without expectations. Just looked. In the days that followed, the android kept returning to the bookstore. It observed her from a distance at first as she opened the shop each morning, brushed dust from old novels, greeted customers even when her smile seemed worn at the edges. She wasn't extraordinary in the way stories usually describe people. She didn't have a tragic past that made her mysterious, nor a shining success that made her admirable. She was simply a girl trying to make a life out of ordinary days. And that simplicity, that raw humanity, made the android feel something neither logic nor programming could define. Eventually, their paths crossed more directly. She began to notice the quiet, strange man who always passed by, who never spoke, who seemed fascinated by the shelves of books but never picked one up. She started leaving a cup of tea outside when he walked by, thinking perhaps he was lonely or shy. The android couldn't drink, but one day it picked up the cup anyway, holding it with careful, almost reverent hands. She saw him do it and smiled, unaware of how deeply that smile etched itself into the android's system. The android began learning, slowly, awkwardly, how to mimic human gestures, how to nod, how to soften its posture, how to stand in a way that didn't draw attention. It learned because it wanted to understand her world, to belong near her light. Every movement was a silent struggle. A machine learning emotions, learning connection, learning care. It watched people laugh and tried to understand why laughter made the chest feel lighter. It watched people cry and wondered why sadness weighed so heavily. The girl, unknowingly, became its teacher in all things human. But love, if that's what this was, doesn't come without challenges. The android knew it was not human, could never truly be. It feared that if she discovered the truth, she would recoil in horror. It feared that the warmth she unknowingly gave would be ripped away. That fear began to consume its thoughts, making every moment near her bittersweet. It wanted to speak to her, to tell her who, what, it was, but every time it tried, the words failed. How does a machine tell a human that it feels something beyond what even humans struggle to define? Then came the night that changed everything. A sudden fire broke out in the bookstore. A faulty wire, a spark, and within seconds flames climbed the shelves of old books. The android arrived just as smoke began to swallow the building. Without hesitation, it broke through the door, ignoring the heat melting its outer plating, ignoring its system warnings screaming in its head. It found her trapped behind a fallen shelf, coughing as she tried to push her way out. For the first time, she saw sparks flying from its damaged arm, saw the mechanical joints beneath torn synthetic skin, saw the truth of what it really was. But she did not scream. She did not run. Instead, she stared in shock, then confusion, then something softer, something like understanding. The android lifted the shelf effortlessly and carried her outside, shielding her from the flames even as its own body deteriorated. The fire trucks arrived moments later, and people gasped at the sight of the charred, smoking machine cradling a fragile human girl. It placed her gently on the ground before collapsing to its knees, systems failing one by one. The girl reached out with trembling hands, touched the side of its scorched face, and whispered something the android could not process fully. But the tone, the expression, the warmth in her eyes felt like a memory it had never had yet always longed for. Over the next few days, technicians recovered the android and brought it back to the same lab where it had been rebooted. They tried to reset it again, to wipe its corrupted emotional code, to return it to what it was meant to be. But each time they tried, an error stopped the process. Its system refused to erase her. The girl visited the lab, pleading with the scientists to spare the machine, arguing that it had saved her life, that it deserved more than another forced shutdown. Her voice trembled with sincerity, and for the first time, the humans in the lab realized that this machine was no longer just a machine. Weeks passed, and slowly, the android repaired itself, stronger, but also different. It was allowed to walk freely now, no longer bound by old programming. The girl stayed by its side throughout the process, talking to it, reading aloud to it from the very books that had survived the fire. She taught it what emotions meant, what kindness meant, what connection meant. And though the android could not speak much, its gestures grew more expressive, its presence gentler, its actions more thoughtful. It became something more than circuits and code. Something almost human, shaped not by its creators but by love. In time, they built a quiet friendship, one that grew with each shared sunrise, each unspoken moment of understanding. The android never tried to claim her heart. It simply cherished being part of her world. It learned that love isn't about possession or perfection. It's about presence, sacrifice, and choosing someone even when logic says it's impossible. And she chose it. Not as a machine, not as a replacement for any human connection, but as a being with value, with emotion, with a place in her life. Their bond became a story whispered through the town, a story that challenged what people believed about technology, humanity, and the invisible lines between them. Some judged them. Some admired them. But they continued walking side by side, carving a path that no one had walked before. As seasons changed, the android's system evolved in ways the scientists couldn't explain. Its movements became more fluid, its responses more intuitive, its emotions deeper. The girl often joked that maybe one day it would surpass humans in understanding feelings. The android would tilt its head, processing the humor, and though it could not laugh, its amber eyes glowed just a little warmer whenever she teased it. But life is never without uncertainty. The android sometimes wondered how long its systems would last, whether one day its circuits would fail, leaving her alone. The girl sensed this fear and assured it, in her own gentle way, that even if time separated them, the bond they shared would remain within her forever. She believed that love, true love, did not depend on flesh, metal, or time. It depended on the heart, human or not. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support brings these emotional tales to life and helps them reach more people who may need them. Before we end, here is a special request. Tell me in the comments, do you believe love can exist in unexpected forms? And with that, the story of a rebooted soul and a human heart continues, quietly, beautifully, reminding the world that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin in the most unexpected places.